This is Jody Lemieux, your host to the Spiritually Aligned CEO podcast, and you're listening to Conversations with Jody, your one divine guidance system, giving your mindset and business a spiritual facelift by tapping into energy, gaining inspiration, and up-leveling your life by unleashing your infinite potential. Today's episode, I have on with me Sharon Jautz. Sharon has had 30 years of experience in the HR industry, and some of the businesses that she has supported is Forbes magazine, Playboy, and Women's Revealing. Sharon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
You and I had a beautiful conversation, and part of what you and I talked about was the season lens of life. And I think it's really important for people to hear this message that you and I had been beautifully talking about. So if you could just share with me your phrase, seasons in the lens of life.
Yeah, I think that I've had to reinvent myself so many times in my working life. And I've reflected on all the roles that I've had and how each role at the time of my life was really, it just meshed. And I think the job has to mesh with where you're at in life. So, for example, before this job, I traveled internationally. I was responsible for a lot of different businesses across the globe, and it was great because I was based in New York, so I could get easily to various places. And then the pandemic hit, and they said you can work from anywhere. So we moved to New Haven, Connecticut, for a bunch of different reasons. Um, but the job I have now is more fitting with the life I'm living now, which is sort of the tail end of my career. And I didn't want to work in the city anymore. I didn't want to have a heavy lift. And this job allows me to contribute and to learn and grow without having to manage processes, large processes, and groups of people. So, and I look at jobs too, and I had the conversation with my manager today to say, you know, there are whole swaths of people that, for example, a municipality job will appeal to, and a whole swath of people that it won't. So if you need flexibility, for example, you have small children, probably a municipal job is going to be difficult for you because it's not very flexible. So it always has to fit where you're at in life. Otherwise, you're going to suffer.
So yeah, share a little bit more about your philosophy about pain and suffering and not being tied to a specific job or a specific title.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be happy, and you have to choose happiness. And I think that, it's hard to choose happiness every day, but I think it's even harder to be difficult and miserable every day. And I think that in large part, how you spend your working life is a huge chunk of your day, of your life. So why not choose happiness? And you know, take the blinders off for a minute. And, it has to be like this. It has, I gotta take off the shoulds and put on the what ifs. Like, well, what if I move to New Haven? What if I move to New York? What if I have a job that I travel? And use that lens instead of I have to or I must. I think it's a good way to just allow possibility into your life. And where there's possibility is growth. Where growth stops is when you say no, or I can't, or I shouldn't. Well, who says? You get to make up the rules.
I love that. You get to make up the rules because
Well,
it's your life.
you're the boss of you, and you're in charge of your career, not your manager, not your parents, not your husband, not your wife, not your partner. It's you, and nobody knows you better than you. And if you don't know you better than you, start there. Start there and become self-aware.
Oh, I love this. Start there and become self-aware. If
Hmm.
you had to share with somebody as to, becoming more self-aware, what would be your piece of advice for them to start becoming aware of who they are and really voicing the what ifs?
I think it's old school, but it works for me, and it's old fashioned pen to paper. Get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper, even if you left it on the kitchen counter and you passed it every day. And it can be, what do I enjoy? Um, what am I good at? You might be good at something, but you get no joy from it. Like you might be really great at creating budgets, but you don't like that. So you don't want to spend a lot of time there. So where do you want to spend your time? Oh, I like teaching children. Okay, so then put that in this column. Um, Understand where you get your joy, where you get what your strengths are, and know that sometimes those are not the same. Those are not the same. Having difficult conversations for me is not joyful, but I don't have difficulty with it. Do I like to have them? No, but I know that that's something that I can do well. And for some people, that's really just not an option for them. They just physically can't. I can do that well, but it doesn't give me a lot of energy.
I like what you're sharing here, doing things that we either like or don't like, and really finding the joy and embracing that and moving forward with those what ifs and taking that forward in life. So, I guess for me, the next question would be, now that people have discovered their awareness, their joy, what they are, their happiness, and they're in a difficult situation, maybe they have a conflict in their work, what would be a suggestion for those uncomfortable conversations? Using your experience that, yeah, you don't like them, but you have a really great talent in difficult, uncomfortable conversations from your HR experience.
I mean, growth comes from uncomfortable conversations. Growth comes from um, uncomfortable conversations. Let's start with feedback. Holy smokes. I mean, I don't like to give it. I don't like to receive it. Nobody does, but it's a gift. So start with, I'd really love to be a great public speaker. What do I need to do to get there? Because I'm not now. So what do you suggest I do? And go to people that you admire, that you look up to, or that you think have that great skill, to say, um, I admire how you do this and I love how you do this. Show me or tell me how I can get to that level on my own. Yeah.
I love that because I love that you're taking somebody's idea of what they're passionate about
Hmm.
and giving them the possibility of, igniting in them something that's within them,
Hmm.
but also you're guiding people to a way to uncover that about themselves by observing others doing what you desire to do. I love
Yeah.
that piece of advice.
And listen, every job, everything in life is not going to be all about joy and everything you love, right? It's just not. But you want to be sure you focus most of your time in those areas. So, like we all don't like filing and we all don't like, administrative work and everything. But understand that and don't spend all of your time there. Spend the majority of your time doing things that, you can contribute and do well and get energy from. Um, but with a holistic and realistic um, lens of that's life, that's life. But you get to design your life at a certain point in your lifetime. I want to do this. I want to spend time doing that. I want to start doing these things during the course of the year. Um, yeah, and so you get to decide actually what your life is going to look like. In the beginning, in the 20s and 30s, and sometimes your 40s, you don't really have a lot of I get to decide because sometimes you've got children, you have to put them first, and you've got partners, and sometimes you have to put them first. And you get to a point in your career where you're like, you know what? No, actually, I can say I enjoy this, and actually, I do want to spend more time doing that. And I'm fortunate that's where I am in my career, to be able to say, this is what I choose to do.
I love that. I choose to do. I
I,
choose what I love doing. I choose my life. So for you, what is this next part for you? What are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to, I'm always about helping people, but helping women find their voice. And, I love coaching and counseling a lot of returning to work moms, whether they were full time caregivers or full time moms, and now they want to come back to work. And, they just need that leg up and that push to say, I counseled somebody a couple of weeks ago, and my rule of thumb is don't have anything more than 10 years on your resume, because guess what? It's ancient history. Nobody cares about the great 1996 fax machine purchases that you made, right? Like nobody cares. Um, but she had all this listing, and it was, as Bruce Springsteen says, her glory days, right? And she's like, but I want people to know. And I'm like, people will know. They will know, and you can talk about it. Just don't go into all the detail of what you did in 1994 when you were a vice president and publisher of blank. Um, it'll come through. And, by the way, it's okay to, she was just a salesperson right at the moment. I said, it's okay. Your job fits your life. You had children that you had to be home to, you had to leave at 5 o'clock. And a publisher's life isn't that. Now, do a lot of publishers have small children? Of course they do. It's personal decisions. But she made the decision she wanted to be at home with her children. And so she took just a sole contributor sales job. And I said, don't be embarrassed about that. And I said, if anyone, questions you like, oh, I don't understand that, well, you don't want to work there. So, and I sort of coached her to understand that her choices and her decisions were okay. They're actually okay. And she's enough. She's fine. She's enough. And she can present herself and go forward. She's good.
Oh, what a beautiful lesson you imparted right there. Not only to her, but also to the listeners. You are enough.
Yeah.
You absolutely are. Celebrate who you are, and that's going to shine through. What a great message, Sharon. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for imparting that wisdom with us.
Ah, yeah. I learned the hard way on the resume because I had a resume put together for myself, and being in HR, you're always involved in some sort of legal matter and stuff. And I had a lawyer who had my resume, and of course, his job is to discredit me, in the opposition. And he was asking me things about my resume that I had on there that I had actually done, but were so far in my rearview mirror, I couldn't remember details about him. And I ended up sounding like I didn't know anything. And right then and there, I said, all right, no more than 10 years, because I just have no depth of recall. So just a little tip.
I love that little tip. Thank you so much for sharing that. What is one lasting nugget of wisdom, or what is one thing that you'd like the listeners to leave with, to take with them today?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I will never forget my first job out of college. I interviewed on a Wednesday. I got the job on a Friday. I started on Monday, and I stayed for 16 years. I started as a secretary, literally getting coffee and picking up dry cleaning and all this kind of stuff. And I left 16 years later as vice president of HR. And I have no regrets at all about anything I've ever done, or haven't done. I have zero regrets. But I often reflect that I probably should have left that party before the lights went out. I was too afraid. And I had, by the time I got restructured out, because we got purchased and they brought in all their own people, and I got restructured out as vice president of HR, I was whatever, 30, I don't know, 33 years old, but I had the resume of a 22-year-old girl. Always, always, day one of any new job, I am updating my resume. And it comes from not a place of harsh judgment or, I'm bitter or anything. It just comes from reality. Because if day two, they're like, not so much, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. So I've always kept my resume updated. I would always encourage people to say yes, because when you say no, it shuts down possibility. So saying yes is, and without overwhelming yourself and all of that, I don't mean to say yes to everything, but I'm saying when you say no, there is no more possibility of an opportunity. So if something may open up an opportunity for you, say yes. Say yes. And take that chance. See what's out there. It's okay every 5 years to do a recalibration. Is this job still working for me? Is this what sometimes your job should evolve into something that is either, oh, this is unexpected, I like this, or, oh, this is unexpected, this is not what I signed up for. And it's okay to recalibrate, to say, this no longer works for me, let me see what's out there. And at a certain point in your career, your next job is going to come from your network. Somebody who knows you, the friend of a friend of a friend, and keep up those networks. Touch them weekly. Be that, what is it, the bridge broker bond. So you're either introducing people, to say, hey, Jody meet Sharon, like Bert did. Like, how wonderful is that? That's bridging two people. Brokering two people. Who you need to get to know is so and so. And then, just bonding with your people. I saw this article and I thought of you. Be that person. Be that person in your network that's always doing one of those three things. It's very helpful. So that's just a few nuggets.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your lens in the seasons of different parts of your life. Thank you again for joining me today. And I'm just so grateful for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jody. It was really fun. And thank you for having me.